Hey guys, the purpose of these tutorials is just going to be to give you really quick tips and tricks for Cinema 4D, and we'll definitely be diving into other software programs as we do a lot of work with drones and production cameras, but really going to use Cinema 4D as the tool to do a lot of cool things that I think we've obviously learned from a lot of people out there, but we've kind of developed our own workflows as well. So I think what we're going to do is really try to keep these short and quick and just show you how to use Cinema 4D. So the first thing we're going to talk about is low poly modeling. As you can see from this video, this is kind of a cool scene that we developed for a client to show just sort of a miniature world growing on top of this object. And eventually it pulls back, but I'm not able to show you the logo yet at this time as we're still kind of in development of this. But basically, this was all done very low polygon count. So our mountains, our sun, our clouds, our trees that are growing, and even our water here was all done with just very simple modeling techniques. As you can see, the result is really a cool kind of mind-bending little world that we created. So in Cinema 4D, here's kind of the way that my scene was set up. We've got this mint world, which I grouped all into one object. We've got a ton of trees. Normally I would use a cloner for the trees, but I just broke these out individually because the polygon count's so low and I didn't want to control a lot of them individually. The mountains were also just landscape objects, but what you can see about all of these objects is, number one, we removed the Fong tag on everything. So if you don't know what the Fong tag is, it's this little tag right here. Okay, so in order to give yourself that low poly look, the first thing you want to do is remove that. And then the second thing we did is we did a polygon reduction on a lot of these. So just a little bit of a reduction in the polygon count will give it that more artistic look. So what we're going to dive into is just the trees on this first tutorial on low poly modeling. So what I'm going to open here is a recent project. So here we are, we're just looking just at one of these cherry trees up close and personal. So what you can see is, if I break this out, the basic stem, or I guess the root of this tree, is a cube object, and you can see it's very minimal polygon count. So initially we just started with something like this, and we extruded it up, and just by doing little rotations, to give you an example, extruding by hitting Command or the Windows key on your keyboard, you hold that down and you drag it out. And now what you can do is you can rotate the end of it. Okay, you can enlarge or shrink the end of it. Okay, and you can even move the end of it. Okay, so doing very simple moves like that, we were able to grow this into a tree. And then the blooms here, these red blooms, were done using a sphere object. Okay, given a polygon reduction. Okay, so basically what you do is you'll grab a sphere, voila, and it's absolutely massive. Let me drag that down. Okay, so we'll come in back here so you can see these both in the viewer. We take rid of that Fong tag, and then we give it what is called a polygon reduction. And you can play with the amount, and it will give you here, the strength will change what kind of object you have. So that's a good way to start playing around with these bushes. Okay, so that's really just kind of a quick overview there. The last thing is that obviously we've got, and if I bring a light in to let you really see what it looks like, the materials that we use are obviously very key, and I usually use Grayscale, the light kit from Grayscale, but I'll just do this really quickly. You can see how cool of a effect these trees now have using just seeing with a light in there. And we'll go shadow map soft. So look at how real that looks. You can see this wood grain, and you can see this kind of granular looking texture. So for the wood grain, we've got a material here, and in the color channel, all we did was we created two different colors. Okay, and it's a noise, And the big key here is adjusting the relative scale. Okay, so normally we would come in here and it would be at 100%. So you just see a bunch of speckles, and that's after we turn the global scale way down from 100 to all the way to 2%. But to get that long wood grain look, we're going to extend this all the way up to close to 2000. And now you can see here, that's how we get that texture. Okay. And the reflectance, we can play with that, but for right now, I didn't really mess with that at all. We kind of gave it a little bit of a reflectance channel there. These blooms are even simpler than that. Okay. In the color, you're going to come in and pick 2 colors, bring the global scale way down. It should probably even be lower than that. And leave everything else the same as long as it's a noise. And what you'll see is that's how you're going to get these little color patches in there that kind of mimic leaves. But again, we're not going for reality here. We're going for an altered reality, and also just a simpler workflow, one that I think your clients would really like. The last thing I'll say is in your render settings, it helps to throw on an ambient occlusion and give yourself some extra cool lighting effects that you'll start to see shadowing and a little more shadowing down at the base. So that's really the quick overview on how to create the trees that you saw in the scene right here. Okay, so that's what makes up this whole base. So that's the end of the first tutorial. Thanks for watching, and next we'll talk about the mountains.